Hello and welcome to John and James Live. My name is John Hastings with my co-host, Mr. James CeeLo. James, you've disappeared. What's going on? You're back. Good start. I think you've been hacked by we've been hacked by the FBI already. It must be. Epstein. Today is Epstein Day. We're going to discuss the big topic at the moment. It's huge globally, James, but it doesn't seem very popular on LinkedIn, does it? What do you think? Why do you think that is? So the global apathy for drama at the moment.
I'm sketchy as anything on here, mate. Hold on 2 seconds. Let me try and improve this. Apologies, everybody.
So today, guys, we're going to go through the Epstein Files. I've been going through them. To be honest, I haven't read anything majorly bad at the moment. Just things that I've seen online, which are not good. But I've seen some very interesting things, especially things about the foundation of AI, people that have been implicated in that, the conversations that we've been had 20 years ago. Hi, Nancy. How are you today? Hope you're well. Thank you for tuning in.
Afternoon, Nancy.
Yeah, James, you haven't really gone through the files that much.
You've gone down a proper rabbit hole, mate. I've read bits and pieces, but I think you've gone full on investigative journalist.
Yeah. There's a feeling of like you can try and pull out something completely new and be the first one to share it with the world, isn't it? Bit of an ego thing to do it. But first of all, we'll go through. Obviously, Epstein was well, we don't really know where he made his money completely. It was meant to be in some type of finance somewhere. I think it started at Bear Stearns. It was like an investment company back in the day. And then he went to prison in 2007 or 8 for soliciting a minor for prostitution. I think they got him off on a charge where the girl was like 17 and a half, but in America that's still seen as a minor, so he's still seen as basically a pedophile. But I guess that's probably the logic on why some people gave him a pass. But realistically, you know, people said he got an easy pass because there was numerous girls between 14 and 17 that accused him of, you know, sexual abuse, rape. The trafficking is potentially something that was on the table, but they're trying to negate that view now. But then after his obviously prosecution, he went to prison for about 18 months, pretty much served a very light sentence. I'm not sure how much he served of that. A lot of it, he was allowed to go into his office for like 12 hours a day and then go back to prison for 12 hours, which is like the most lenient term ever.
Mockery, isn't it?
But then
the justice system.
And then obviously the 2008 crash kicked off, and I think he made a bit of money. He said he was his 2 phone calls that he had a day, and one was to like the head of Bear Stearns, and then one was to the head of JP Morgan, and it was about how they fixed this, you know, subprime lending problem that he had, and he was giving them advice. Apparently, this is what he says. A lot of people went under, a lot of people lost a lot of assets, a lot of money, but he seemed to come out making money in the end. And then a lot of billionaires, rich people have worked with the guy, and he's been very influential in circles like academia, science, technology. So some of the stuff I've read, James, he was very influential in the start of AI. There was a lot of all of the AI nerds in that space when AI wasn't really a big thing. They was coming to guys like Epstein for money, basically. They're looking for research money. But it comes to...
You could argue he's the sort of the ultimate influencer, wasn't he? And connector. And had, you know, fingers in so many different pies.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's a little bit like Ponzi schemes that you hear about throughout sort of history, that people have this level of influence that nobody wants to question them because they are so entrenched in certain circles in society that you don't want to be the one that kind of puts the hand up. And yeah, I find it fascinating.
Yeah, he was living in one of the biggest houses. Nancy says he's basically been a jerk since he was young. Pretty weird, right?
Pretty weird.
If to be honest, it sounds controversial. Yeah, he's done some really bad stuff, like really dark. The circles that they was sort of getting involved with, and the trafficking, the abuse, and the island, and the billionaires, and all of that type of stuff. Put that aside, when it just comes to being a guy, I found him quite charming, to be honest, in the interviews. I can see what the attraction would be with him. And it comes to the duality of a lot of different people in this space, probably like, I don't like to say, but like the Savills and that type of stuff. Sometimes they're very weird, but they've got some type of charisma or charm about them, and they can do like great stuff for charity, but they also have the crazy dark side as well. So I can see from the interviews how people would get, like, guys or other academics could get lured in by the charm, the richness, the private jet, the beautiful house in Manhattan, the private island, the connections. These research academia guys, they're just looking for money, aren't they, to do their research.
The interviews that I'd seen, the videos that I'd seen of him, he didn't come across as aggressive or as kind of like bolshy or arrogant. He seemed quite sort of a level of self-deprecation, and he would have flown under the radar, I think, in that respect. It's just
I know people wasn't going to be pleased with that, but I could really see. I think he's a good-looking guy. I think he's got a bit of that mysterious, like, women that had the sixth sense to think he was creepy, but for a guy, I think he looks quite, it's a bit of a guy's dream, isn't it? The private jet lifestyle, to feel connected, to feel valued. So I can see what the appeal was with potentially other guys.
Yeah, I mean,
it comes to a moral dilemma, though, doesn't
Nancy,
it?
This is a commentary on how these people get to do what they do. This is not endorsing, this is not agreeing with behaviors or whatever. This is just looking at it from a perspective like, how do these people come to operate in a void?
Yeah.
And how do they get away with it? Because if you're overtly one particular way, pretty quickly you're going to get shut down. People aren't going to engage with it. But if you are hiding in plain sight, if you're a wolf in sheep's clothing, then you can see how people can be taken in by it. So it's more a commentary on that, in respect of an understanding of how it was possible that these situations can occur. It's, as I said, it's not justifying it. It's not in any way excusing it or endorsing it. It's just coming to an understanding, a comprehension of how these things happen in society. But fundamentally, it's very much down to influence, what people could get out of that situation through that relationship. When you're reaching the sort of high echelons, when you're in the 1% in terms of the financial elite, then the rule book is very different to on the ground. The people you get access to, the networks that you have access to, is totally unique. And it's an incredibly attractive thing when you are potentially in a vulnerable position, if you're looking to get a foot up to make something and you're presented with that as an opportunity, you can start to understand, you know, that the morality of it is clearly up for debate, but you can understand in terms of human nature, depending on the individual at a particular stage in their life, being taken in by somebody of that nature is what I'm going to say.
Yeah. Because how many times do we don't ask questions? Let's talk in general life, just normal human beings, about, you know, supply chains. When, you know, we talked about the other day, didn't we, James, about, you know, where your clothes are made, where the tech's made, where the precious metals are taken from Africa for your Mac and your phone, then shipped over to some place in China to, you know, be put together by potentially people who are, you know, vulnerable. Who knows what position these people are in? How are these coffee crops grown? Who's been exploited? You don't really think about that when you order your Starbucks cappuccino. And you could say, could you make an argument that some of the people who are involved with Epstein, you know, they heard on the grapevine he had something going on with prostitution back,
but chose to ignore it
7 years ago. Everybody said, it was with a 17-year-old and it was a, you know, it was a thing, and they didn't look too further into it? Or do you think that's an excuse, James, because there was enough media out there to say, you know, this was an underage girl, this was the tip of an iceberg, he got off lightly?
Yeah.
Where do you see this? Is it, you think it's just beyond, is morally compromised to the maximum, and there's just no excuse, basically?
Yeah. Well, you know, you could take a very staunch view of it and say that that is inexcusable. It doesn't have any debate around it whatsoever. If you're associating with somebody that does that, then you are morally reprehensible, and you are aligning yourself with that individual. And what does that say about you as a person? You know, if you're associating, okay, that's the immediate response. And if you don't start to think of the human element, the nuances, the different aspects, then you can be quite happy with that as a response. But I think bearing in mind what you talked about right at the beginning is taking things into context, the environment that you may have been in, the headspace that you may have been in, desperation. If it was a matter of looking after your family or not, this could have represented a way out of poverty or a potential whatever. Now, clearly, individual cases is going to be different. You've got politicians involved. You've got business leaders involved.
Yeah,
so many different
high
individuals.
Up, James, they've got a different type of
that
need. It's not like they're
should have a better moral compass. So there's certain individuals that you cannot fathom how they would have continued that relationship, yet knowing what they knew, whether they chose to brush that under the carpet, conveniently dismiss that information, who knows? That's for the individuals to answer to. That's their own moral judgment. But you would want to think that if you had all of that information to hand, that you would not have an association immaterial of personal gain from it, that it just is a non-negotiable. You do not deal with those individuals.
Yeah. What do you think about forgiveness, James? If somebody does say Epstein did something bad at that point and he got prosecuted, what if he said he was rehabbed? We obviously know that it wasn't, and things were going on behind the scenes, but is there an argument that even for crimes as bad as that, people deserve a second chance?
Yeah, highly nuanced, isn't it? Because immediately I'd say no. There's zero tolerance on it.
Yeah.
But I'm familiar with cases of child abuse, and it's whether you choose to look at the backstory behind that individual, that they were abused as a child.
Yeah.
And you know, the fallibility of the human element of saying, you know, and I don't know what the evidence is in respect of abusers becoming, or abused becoming abusers, I should say.
Yeah.
From conversations I've had, it can be rarer than you think. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like whether you choose to have any level of empathy over these individuals because of these atrocious acts that they perpetrate, whether you have the bandwidth to even consider any kind of salvation for them, comes down to your, I mean, because if you say, well, if this was your child that it happened to, well, clearly it's zero tolerance because that's your child.
Yeah.
So to sort of sit back and say, oh, you know,
people do forgive, like people that have been murdered and people have murdered their kids. They do forgive. There are situations.
I agree. It seems to be rare on rare occasions, depending on how it's reported. But, mate, I think
tricky territory. There's sexual abuse stuff, isn't it? To be honest, it moves into very.
Well, we've had these conversations just recently. So when it's close to home and it's something that you've experienced yourself, you know, if you were faced with your abuser, I went through a period of thinking that I completely forgave. And none of this is linear. None of this kind of follows a track of going, well, here I am today, and this is how it's always been, or there was a sort of a point A and you work towards point B. I don't believe that. I think on any given day you can feel differently about the situation. But I sometimes think about if I was to meet my abuser again, how that would work. But in therapy, I'd exercised a lot of demons through the process of that therapy. I mean, it was violent, it was angry, it was visceral, it was physical.
Yeah.
And then there's the healing of the inner child that you go back to, and giving that child what they needed at the time that they didn't get it. And there's a huge amount of healing in that. So, but it's incredibly complex, and that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, so Nancy says,
go for it, James.
A lot of these folks act polite because they're taught to talk in a certain way. I always look for people who come from old money. I know a lot of people from family offices. They're connectors who manage money for billionaires and multimillionaires. So they've seen the darker side of what you guys are discussing. There's a lot of that happens behind closed doors. We only see about 5% of it. And I can well believe it. And unless you've been in those spaces, I don't know that you could possibly comprehend what potentially goes on. I would add into that a caveat that I would like to think this is in the minority. I wouldn't like to think that all people...
I think that's the danger, isn't it, James, to actually brush people over because they are wealthy. They're the ones money,
that's their personality type.
Because everybody that we know that something's happened to, these are not wealthy people.
Yeah. I mean, it's whether you fundamentally believe that money corrupts. You know, if money is the root of all evil, well, it clearly isn't. But what it does, and it's not just the fiscal element, it's the relationships that are held with people in power. So you could have somebody with, you know, very little money per se, but would have influence or sway because of personality with people that do have the real power. And then you're the sort of, and playing a game of chess, that you're the grand manipulator.
So no one can pretend we can't comprehend evil anymore. Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying, look, don't look too much further than, you know, your own next door neighbor or within your own family, because James and I have both experienced sexual abuse within our own families. And the statistics are it's normally either your stepdad, your uncle, your dad, your granddad. It can be women as well, but it's majority men.
Or
Could
a family
be your school
friend,
teacher, family friend, sports teacher. Could be anything like that. So it's not. Yeah, we see these dark circles within rich people and elites, but I would probably imagine there's plenty of people with money and elites who don't follow.
But again, in no way are we excusing this behavior, but what we are saying is that either you choose to just make a snap decision, and that is my thought on it, that's my perspective, and that's it. That's clearly fine. It's if that's your view, then that is the way it's going to be. And as I said, in terms of the circumstance, all of that is taken into consideration. That great for us to sort of sit here and kind of pontificate or make commentary on a situation, but if it was one of our own, you could argue it'd be very, very different. Then the decision process could be much more black and white. But are we in a society where we are going to make snap judgments and just label every individual because they fit into a certain category as being that way? Or are we going to take the time? Do we have the time, the bandwidth to actually start to look at this as a highly nuanced situation of it's impossible to just make a snap judgment and categorize every individual because the minority are acting in a certain way, 100%. Because where's the hope in that? Where's the salvation?
Every case, James, you've got to judge in the context of that individual case. So there will be people who are, abusing girls that are underage. There will be some of these people that are potentially sleeping with escorts or prostitutes. Maybe they're in their 20s. I don't agree. I think those industries are terrible. Most people wouldn't want to be in them, to be honest. And I go, women have, some women might say they want the rights to freedom. They can do whatever they want to do, and they choose to make money from their body, whether it be OnlyFans or people like Bonnie Blue would say she's making millions and she wants to do that and be a sex worker. I don't agree with it. I think it's quite toxic culturally, but that would be up to them. There's a big difference between that and people being underage against their against their will to be doing those things. So those are very different.
In that respect, you cannot, there's zero tolerance of that. Absolutely zero tolerance. There can't be any argument made for any of that.
So Nancy says, I'm sorry for both of you to go through this. I really appreciate you both for opening up and discussing this topic. It's true that abuse has no gender, nor does evil. Yeah, thanks for that, Nancy. It doesn't have any gender, but it does lean towards men being perpetrators a lot more statistically, I would say, James. And
but what is evil? I mean, it's an interesting term, evil in itself, isn't it? It's because again, I think
once it's happened to you, James, doesn't it, with you and I, you actually, once you've had this very close to home, you've had time to process it emotionally. So if you've not experienced it or it's new, then you have you hear people, they're quite visceral with their reactions, and that is a process that you go through 100%. That's what it's like normally at the beginning.
Completely understandable.
But if you're like 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, this has happened to you, you've gone through the emotional sort of roller coaster with it, and you come to a place where, like what you were saying, James, what do you think about this sort of good and evil statement?
I mean, it's the way in which we make sense of the world, isn't it? That the people that perpetrate this are evil. Whether you choose to believe they were born evil, I mean, how can that be? That this is that kind of nature nurture. I mean, really, I know. When you look at an innocent baby and the child and think, that they could become a dictator, they could become a, somebody
I'm not
that
sure
would
about the evil.
perpetrate.
Some people do have a proclivity to darkness, don't know, no matter how well maybe subjectively maybe they've come through childhood.
It has to be nurture. I cannot
I know,
believe
that's what I mean, James. I think
that
I'm with you,
anyone is
James.
genetically, to be predisposed to act in a certain way that you would be able to perpetrate violence, with psychopathic tendencies, narcissistic qualities, covert or overt or otherwise, that, it has to be environmental.
Yeah. Because even if you look at someone like Hitler's background, if you looked at his childhood, you wouldn't be surprised that he turned out the way he did. A lot of turbulence, a lot of disconnection with his parents, sibling dying very young, going to World War One very young, the whole depression in Germany. You can see how a mentality like that will start to come forth, can't you?
Where are the lessons from history? And, we're now in an age where this is more relevant possibly than it has been in a long time, where we as collectively and as individuals can recognize those behavior traits and not be drawn in and become sheep.
Yeah.
And accepting also, there's the kind of the apathy and the lack of agency to say, well, there's, this is society now. We can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
At what point do you take a stand, and what, do we do as individuals? And it's the sense of helplessness of saying, well, what can we do? Because, if it is moneyed and it is in the places of power that these things are being excused, accepted, then what do we do as a general populace? Where is our voice?
Yeah.
And we take a long, hard look at ourselves to say, well, are my behaviors perpetrating any of this in respect of what am I doing to voice my opinion? Am I standing up even in polite society? And if there's a comment made, am I saying anything about it?
It's true, James. You have to.
We're staying silent.
Yeah, you definitely. There is like we said, there's spectrums to this, isn't there? There's like the dark triad of psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and I think it's narcissism. Maybe those three traits that some people do have extreme levels in them directions. Maybe they don't show a lot of empathy. There is like a psychological imbalance in their brain.
Yeah.
Maybe that can get you places in business sometimes. Maybe that for some people that's created success in their life, and they're extreme in other areas that they could sexually abuse. They don't really care about it. So it's
exactly. And the problematic element of these personality disorders is that, say, narcissism, for example, can manifest itself in doing good deeds, seemingly selfless deeds. I do this for charity, and I'm putting myself out there in this, let's say a group that I'm sort of heading up and leading because I want the betterment of local community leaders, etc. Look, I'm not saying community leaders are narcissistic. They're genuinely people trying to do good in the world, but unfortunately, it is a trait of narcissism that can manifest itself in that way.
Yeah.
In which case,
you saw
we can
that
be
in the
taken
Epstein
in.
Files. You definitely saw him maybe
again and again
getting involved with big charities. There's a narcissist. There can be a narcissistic element to it, isn't it? Look at me, I'm a good person. So that extremity can sort of go. It can go both ways, James, can't it? Which then begs the question: if somebody's got a destabilization in their mental makeup, whether it's high on the dark triad three traits, then do you blame people for that? How much accountability do they take, James? Would you blame a schizophrenic for a certain act if you knew that they weren't, mentally right? Where do you draw the line?
This comes down to how much you're willing to scratch beneath that surface.
Or is it all an excuse? Can you use that as an excuse and you just can't do that stuff? If you exploit others and you take advantage of that, it should be game over for you. And then, you're either, I don't know, people might say you could be tortured or you're put to death or you're put in prison for the rest of your life and there's no rehab. Because realistically, James, if somebody does that type of stuff and you give them 3 to 5 years in prison, what is the chances of you ever trusting that person to not do it again? Yeah. I think it's extremely low.
And we are hardwired to think that way because it's self-preservation.
Yeah. You just wouldn't want to take the chance, would you? You wouldn't want to live next door to them. You wouldn't want to give them a job. You wouldn't want to be anything.
Unfortunately, it's always going to be there. Yeah. And I guess literally it's only at the point where time and time again you've had the opposite proved to you, and it will take time, I think, for that. But always in the back of your mind, you must be thinking they could do that again. But in the prison system, I mean, I think it's fairly well known that they are a breeding ground for increasing criminal behavior. I don't know that they are institutions of reform and rehabilitation.
And they're mostly from, probably dysfunctional families, dysfunctional backgrounds of abuse themselves. There's a cycle there, isn't there? On this, something's gone wrong in there. I think we need to. I get the visceral response to it, but I think at some time we have to actually explore it scientifically and really understand the psychology beyond just saying good and evil. I just think that doesn't really help solve the problem, does it? You need to, if you want to.
It's convenient. It's, it's a way in which, as I said, we make sense of the world, that you'll make a judgment, you'll make a decision, that's evil, that was good, and move on.
Yeah.
So, completely, we get it, but is that going to move us forward as a society?
Yeah. What are you going to learn? What are you going to learn from that, James? You need to be able to break it down, don't you? Behaviors, environments, what's causing people to act in this way.
Yeah. And how much responsibility do we take as individuals? It's like, what do we do? What can we do?
What can we do?
As opposed to just sitting there and saying, well, that is, and clearly you're going to have an emotional response. Anything that happens in life, you'll respond to emotionally. If somebody comes up to you and is abusive, you'll have an emotional response. If you see something on TV that you dislike, you're going to have an emotional response. Something you like, you're going to have an emotional response. So, we are human beings in that respect, but it is what we feel we can do as a society, as opposed to just labeling.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, where's the parents at the 14-year-olds at this point? Like, what's gone wrong before they've got to the point where they could be exploited? It's a big worry, isn't it? Apparently, it only came out when 2 girls had a fight at a school, and one of the girls was calling the other one a prostitute.
Yeah.
Between a couple of maybe 14 to 15-year-olds, and then they found $300 in one of their bags, and she says, like, where'd you get this from? And they said, I'm massaging some rich guy around the corner. And then it came out from this school squabble. But I'm thinking, where's the parents? where was the teacher? Where was the intervention?
The majority of these kids are vulnerable. They're,
and then you've got the women doing the sort of trafficking that side, the Ghislaine Maxwell types. Then you've got other people that are recruited in to recruit other women. They know what's happening. That's dark, isn't it?
Unpack that. you know, the individuals that are coerced into it, and
that is dark.
Are, you know, are enabling that behavior.
Enabling,
they are the conduit.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? You know, what kind of hold? Again, do you make excuses? Do you say that she was coerced, that she was blackmailed, that she was abused in that relationship as well, and she was the victim? You know, you could potentially argue that, but you know, it's how far you want to go to start to sort of excuse behaviors, and then anything goes because you can explain it away. So it's a fine
line, James. Here we go. Nancy, charity and non-profits can often appear to be scams. While there are genuine organizations out there, many of the philanthropic efforts from wealthy individuals are funneled into their own foundations or reserved for initiatives that ultimately benefit them, particularly in terms of tax advantages. Yeah, that was big. That's a good point on that. I think there was many tax loopholes that Epstein was being used for by the mega rich. I think he was doing all the offshore accounts where there was NGOs across the world that they was funneling money into. But this, you're right on that, Nancy. It can be you know, again, I don't want to overgeneralize because I want to give the world the benefit of the doubt and say most charities are out there trying to do a good thing. That's what I want to believe. I would want to believe that 90% plus are out there with a good attitude, good intentions to do the right thing. So I don't want to. You can be overly skeptical, can't you, James? I don't know if that's a good thing either, to say everyone's like this. Elites are like, you know, satanic child abusers. Then you've got, you know, all charities are bad, and then you got all men are bad, and then I'm scared to walk the streets, you know. And then most of the time 99.9% of men are absolutely fine, harmless. They're not out there to try and abuse you or anything like that. But you know, there's a lot of people in the world, and there are people that do that.
Yeah.
Which is not good. Well, what do you think about the feeling with society, James, with this? Because you know, this person was so woven into the higher echelons of society, whether it be academia, science, technology, business, the billionaires, the politicians. I'm sensing there's a societal apathy towards it, where they hear about it and they're already desensitized. It's like, man, I've got to pay bills. What am I going to do about it?
Yeah. Or we've already made up our minds about the mega rich, and that's just their behaviors, you know, because the caricature is there, that you see it in the press. It's a great news story whenever it happens. So all of them, again, like you were saying, have been tarred with the same brush. So it's like, well, we all know that now, that politicians do weird things, that, you know, these parties that go on and swinging and everything else that's already been in the news.
Yeah.
I mean, Mandelson having a photograph in his underpants.
But how many politicians are actually doing that, though, James? That's the thing.
Well, this is it.
People being tarred with the same brush.
But even in, you know, in comedy sketches, and, you know, when you think back to the times of Spitting Image, and, you know, for years and years and years, politicians have been seen in a certain way, you know, that they've been caught with their pants down, makes great tabloid news. So then we get this narrative inside our heads that that's the behaviors that we associate with them.
Poor John.
Oh, poor John. This is all I can say. Your smile said everything. While reading my comment. Yeah. So, you know, people are, depending on your situation, we're in survival mode to an extent.
Most people are in survival. The majority of people in survival
Majority of people in survival mode. And then therefore the
capacity's low, isn't it, for this?
When you're trying to survive, it's like, well, where's my priority right now? I don't have the capacity, I don't have the bandwidth to be able to formulate a coherent opinion about this I can't do anything about it. All I can do is worry about paying my mortgage, you know, putting food on the table, etc., etc. That doesn't affect me, and therefore I can't give it any energy.
Yeah.
So it's completely, it's understandable. And then you've got these kind of polar opposites of having an opinion, having a judgment based on your own circumstances, that, you know, because I'm in the shit financially, I'm struggling, but these people with money are doing this,
yeah,
you know, morally reprehensible stuff. And I'm, you know, I'm a good person and I can hardly survive. So,
yeah.
you know, that's that kind of moral conundrum that you're faced with.
Doesn't tell the full picture though, does it, James? Because then you, like we said, we've got the poor people that do, you know, sexual abuse. We've got some rich people that do it. You know, there's morals in people.
Nobody is immune. Nobody is
even
immune.
There's loads of people who haven't got any morals, and they go to, look how guys act when they go to these Greek islands and get drunk and abuse people and stuff like that. They're not rich elites, are they? They're like acting like hooligans on holiday. But it's different.
Interesting,
it's different
something
from
we haven't really touched on is that the whole kind of celebrity thing.
Yeah.
And
Nancy said, James, these kids can be vulnerable but not immature. They know it's easy money, so why not flaunt it? And God knows what their parents are up to.
Okay.
Don't know which one that one was for. Actually,
I think when you were talking about, you know, the parents and the kids that are coming from vulnerable backgrounds, you know, that they are ripe for being influenced and picking. I mean, I think, what was it in Bradford? The grooming gangs.
Yeah.
And they were, you know, young girls, 14, 15 years old, all from, you know, challenging backgrounds and homes, and, you know, they were vulnerable kids.
Yeah.
And they were exploited.
The capacity for people, James, we've got to admit, though, the capacity for darkness is sometimes beyond the depths of comprehension. We have to admit that. And accountability wise, even if they have got a mental problem, I'm erring on the side of, I don't care. You have to be brought to account, and that's how a society regulates itself. So whether that would be you, whether it be a death
can't be left
penalty
unchecked.
or something like that,
it cannot be left unchecked.
I'm open to death penalty sometimes, which sounds extreme, but I don't know. I could argue myself out of it, but I could be in them.
It's not. So if you're looking at a death penalty in respect of retribution, that's justice. That's an eye for an eye. Or if you're looking at it as a preventative measure, clearly it doesn't work, does it?
I don't know. Do you think it would?
Okay, so if you're an individual thinking, well, I'm not going to go murder somebody because I might die myself, I might get caught and given the death penalty. I don't see it. I don't get it. If you're of an individual that is intent on killing somebody, is that sufficient to make you go, oh, perhaps I won't kill them?
What if you get found out for any child abuse? You know, at the moment you might get 5 years in prison or something lenient like that, or rape. You know, I think it's like 99% of rape cases, like, nobody gets prosecuted anyway on that side. But would you say death penalty for that?
No.
You've exploited somebody and took advantage of them. I don't know, James, man. I'm moving towards death penalty.
They have to be made to face what they've done.
You think that's the easy way out?
It's not the easy way out. That's the hard way.
What, death?
No, death is the easy way out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They have to be made to face what they've done.
Yeah, but sometimes they don't care, James, apparently. I'm like reading reports on prison service officers and things like that, and they say with these type of characters, maybe they've got they have got screw loosers and their empathy is low. Imagine if you're a leader and you decide to go to war, you're guaranteeing that millions are going to die. You're basically saying, right, I want to go to war because of this. And just you doing that, making that call, you 100% know that thousands of young people are going to die. You have to have something that's lacking potentially in your brain.
So you've convinced yourself that this is for the greater good. To make those kind of decisions, you have to be convinced that this is for the greater good, that millions of lives are going to be saved, the sacrifice of a few to save the many. I can't see any other way of being able to, unless you are a psychopath, that you would be able to justify conflict, that it's for the betterment or for humanity to continue to exist.
Or do you think the death penalty is the problem is if you get it wrong once, it's one too many? Is that the problem?
Again, it comes down to...
If you molest a child, James, you just don't think that's worth the death penalty?
No.
I don't know, man.
I don't. I really don't, mate. I think it would make
people think twice about it.
No.
You don't think that would be a deterrent?
I don't think so, mate. I don't think so.
Oh, I don't know, James. I don't know. We'd have to try it, wouldn't we? They obviously stopped the death penalty for some reason. I don't know why. I have to go back into that. They still got it in certain countries. I don't know how that's panning out, to be honest.
Well, it's still in certain states in America, isn't it? Death penalty, death row.
Sure. Yeah. Not for these type of crimes, though.
No. No.
It's more for like murder and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I think that is a very sketchy area. But what's it doing to society, James? What is going to be the outcome of this? Do you actually think people are going to be held accountable? I just can't. The only person in prison at the moment is a woman, which is ironic, isn't it? The whole saga, crazy. And you've got one woman in prison, which is just insane. You think, who really is going to be brought to justice?
Well, you've got potential. I mean, and depending on how bothered people are by this, is potentially you could have anarchy if the justice system is seen to only serve those who can't defend themselves or can defend themselves. That doesn't make sense to me. So if the justice system is weighted in favor of people that have money and power and influence, and they're untouchable as a result, then what does that say for the layperson, for the normal individual? It's like, well, it's one rule for one and one for somebody else.
But we know that already, though, don't we? Is that like a...
But has it been on this scale with this amount of weight of evidence and the number of people that are involved in this?
Because if you think of something as simple as, I don't know, parking fines or getting bail, then if you're rich, they don't apply to you. You can park anywhere and it doesn't matter because you can pay the fine.
Yeah, it does. You can afford it.
So fines and bail is for poor people. It's to control poor people, isn't it? If you've got money, those type of things don't matter. I'll go and park my Ferrari in the disabled bay outside of wherever I want to park, and I'll just take the fine. £200 fine, £300 fine. Easy. Doesn't matter to me. I guess if they tow your car, it matters. But if it's just a fine, that doesn't matter, does it? So I guess we're living in that society even now. And you have terms of bail where they say you can't get out unless you give £1 million worth of bail. Well, if I've got loads of money, then I can get bail, can't I? So we're already living in that system, and we know that contracts are made by networking in governments, and politicians leave and they join oil companies on the boards, they join weapons companies on the boards. We know this is happening. Many of the politicians based in Oxford or Cambridge, or they're from certain backgrounds or networks. Is it the pretense is falling down, and that's what the danger is? Or do you think that people are relying on this facade to actually just function, and they're just apathetically going about their lives thinking of, what can I do about it?
But this is it. That's the agency that I talked about earlier. It's like, how many people feel that actually they can make a difference in any of this? Or is it just, it is how it is, and it's the acceptance of society. But where does the moral element come into it from these individuals, from these people that are quite happy to park their Ferrari in a disabled bay and accept the fine? I mean, where's the moral judgment that actually that's going to inconvenience somebody that really does need it?
Yeah, but they've got to go to an important meeting, James, and they need to be there. Where's the moral judgment of you buying a coffee, which has been a supply chain of exploitation? It's like, where do we draw the line on morality?
Well, and where does it end? In that respect of, how far do you want to go?
Yeah. Before
it really starts to interrupt
your
routine.
And even I'm swaying back on Nancy says chop off their bits and feed it to them. I know with this stuff it can bring that visceral vengeance, but how many times even I'm starting to sway away from my own feeling of death penalty now, because there's something in me that feels like everyone was that innocent baby at one point. And what has happened in society if we just act like that? Are we just going to go around in a complete circle? I kill your brother, you kill mine. I kill yours, you kill mine. It just goes on and on.
The whole thing with abuse inherently is done on coercion and control. And this is why you see so many cases being reported 15, 20 years later, because the level of control and coercion is such that until they've had therapy, until they've got to a point where they can't keep quiet anymore, that they're compelled to do something. And that's why it's so difficult to prosecute these cases, because of the time that's lapsed in between the event and it being reported. So when you say about...
And nobody's normally there either, are they? It's somebody behind closed doors.
It's one person's word against somebody else's.
It's very difficult, yeah.
It's incredibly difficult. That's, So when you start talking about, the retribution aspect or the preventative, if somebody knew that by doing that, potentially they would be put to death.
It begs, people could be set up, couldn't they? That it brings in other dangers to the party of that type of thing, doesn't it? And, I know. I just, there's something that's uncomfortable with me about it as well, James. Dude, it's dark, isn't it? You're just entering into this dark vengeance cycle of
and again, you're getting into the sort of the simplicity. And if it happened to one of your children, you can completely understand how you'd be saying, I want to kill him personally.
Yeah. And if he did, I would be, I would get it. I would understand it. And I would.
So, it's not dismissing those reactions or saying that that's not relevant, whatever. But I think as a civilized society, whatever that looks like,
an advanced civilization,
otherwise we are going to hell in a handcart, aren't we?
Primitive, yeah. It was primitive. What do you think about the Mandelson case, James? And did Starmer know? Is it negligence? Is it orchestrated? Did they put the rat amongst the rats because they knew that he could have leverage of power over the things he knows in America?
I can't believe he didn't know.
Come on, all that intelligence, James. Do you think it would be highly, all the money we spend, you know, they know everything, don't they? They know everything. So if he didn't, of course he knew.
But again,
there's a reason why he put them in. I think it was because he's got leverage.
The problem is, and I don't think any politician has gotten away without having any shit thrown at them, or, you know, having something come out of the woodwork that they've either paid for votes, or they've, you know, done some underhanded dealings, or, you know, that something had happened that had been covered up. None of them are immune, are they? Unfortunately. And again, this is where the apathy and the sort of the caricature comes in, that you just go, well, that's how politicians are.
Yeah.
You know, there's no surprise. It's a boiling frog. We're seeing it with Trump. You know, we got it with Starmer, and everybody's now calling for his resignation. Then the next person comes in. They've got a great manifesto, make all those promises. White paper looks fantastic. They then get into power. That gets ripped up, thrown away. Now that we're here, reality is very, very different. I understand that. I get that. You come in with all those ideologies, but the reality is very different. But us as the general populace, as the voting public, are there thinking, oh, yeah, this could be different. But when you look at voting apathy as well, that's very much akin to that. You think it's just a version of the same. What is the point of me voting for that party? Because when they get in, it's a variation of a theme.
But we don't know the context of anything. That's the problem, Jay. It's like when we go to war in Iraq, it's not like you're sitting having a coffee and then you just hear on the news, oh, we're going to Iraq. It's like no one's ever even been to Iraq. They don't know anything about Iraq. So these are things that are going on behind the closed scenes. So who knows? Maybe the MI5 went to Starmer and said, look, we know exactly what Mandelson's doing. We know his contacts. Look, this is a judgment. If we put him in here, we know that he knows a lot of things about other people. This could potentially help us. We're in a weaker position than America, and this guy, he could be leverage over there, because people know that if he talks, then people could be in trouble. So we might be able to get, you know, more business or better trade deals or things like that. So maybe Starmer's in a position where he's being forced to pretend he doesn't know, and he can't say the full picture because it's so chaotic behind the scenes. But
it's politics speak, isn't it?
But is Epstein alive, James? There was to finish off.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? Because depends on what you read and what you believe, conspiracy theories, etc., that apparently the body, when it was taken out of prison, was a load of sheets or boxes that had been formed in the shape of a body and had been taken out the front door so that the press could see it and people would observe that happening. And then the real body was taken out the back door, dead or alive.
A lot of conspiracy here, isn't there? To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised, James. He definitely didn't kill himself. I reckon that's off the table. The fact that some guard fell asleep and a minute of video CCTV's gone missing, it's just ridiculous, really, isn't it? So it's either been murdered or he's probably gone back
living in exile.
Probably living in Israel, but the whole Israel situation as well for a different time. But it's obviously quite a new place with that's highly connected, and there's a bit of the middle point between the West and the Middle East, isn't it? Right in the center there, and there's so much political history there that people are not really familiar of. which once you delve into it, it gets super complex. There's a lot of spying, trafficking, politics, positioning around natural energy, geopolitics. This is a big place with people with a lot of power. So I'm not surprised they're running all these tactics.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens next, James.
Well, have we come to any conclusions, any solutions for this situation?
I think people should care. I get it. You're busy and you've got things to do and life's hard and you've got to concentrate on yourself. But if we all have that attitude, then we run the risk of just living in societal apathy when it's always somebody else's. We're outsourcing our agency. We say we've got agency and you think you're an entrepreneur, but you're really running under the rules of other people. So I think we need to change that, James.
Yeah. I mean, are we sort of advocating being more vigilant? Is that something that we should be doing? Is that going to engender fear and being hyper vigilant, and that everyone is potentially, and we're just on the lookout for these things? Because that's the two kind of opposites, isn't it, of being blinkered and apathetic and hypervigilant. It doesn't seem to be much in between, does there?
No, I'd say be sensible, which would be sort of use your instincts. Don't be overly, trust is built over a long period of time. Listen to your children, notice for any differences in behavior. Just have high levels of awareness, but don't live in a state of panic and fear. I wouldn't say. I don't know if that's going to do you any good moving forwards. But I think people should be concerned around things that are going on, even if they feel they can't control it, because it might give people the energy to go and do something about it, James, and get together and be more active rather than passive in what's going on at the moment. I think we'll leave it there, James.
I think so, mate.
It's a big subject. I'm sure it's going to go on for a while, and let's see how things proceed, my friend.
Yeah, but I would just encourage people to discuss, have conversations about it, as opposed to just shutting down and having a very fixed opinion. How can we start the conversation?
About it. And if you have experienced anything we've talked about and been a victim of anything we've talked about today, consider talking to somebody about it in a safe environment. There are numbers you can call. There are people around that can help. I know it can be a difficult journey, especially in terms of if you want to prosecute and things like that, but I think it's probably the best thing to do is to open up. It could help somebody else in the future, and probably could get a lot off your own shoulders, couldn't it, on that one?
Totally agree. I totally agree.
And there is light at the end of that tunnel, so it's probably worth doing.
Yeah.
Go from there. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Cheers, Nancy. John, that's enough for today. Don't go there. What was it? The Middle East and Israel. We'll leave that for another day. But you take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and
much love, everyone.
Stay informed. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.